Oh my gosh, hi. Welcome back to the podcast. This is the ALLYDORA effect, and if you do not know, my name is Allie. And the reason it's called the ALLYDORA effect is because on TikTok I get told that I look like Adora, act like Adora, um, all the above. So I thought it was a fun play on words, if I do say so myself. um, Anyways, the last one went well. You guys liked it. I am surprised. I'm happy about that, really, because I did not know how you guys would take it. This is something I've been wanting to do for a while, so the fact that you guys enjoyed it made me feel a lot better. I literally have read every single one of your guys' comments to find out that some of you guys don't come from TikTok, and that I just kind of popped up on your YouTube feed is cool. Broke the algorithm. Let's go. um, but hi again. I'm Allie. I am obsessed with cartoons, specifically She-Ra. If you can't tell from behind me, and I'm going to be doing a hyper analysis of She-Ra. And hello, Spotify. How are you guys doing? I keep seeing that, the views are popping up on the Spotify. That means you guys don't know what I look like, so that's good. So today we are going to be talking about episode 3 and 4 of She-Ra, which is Razz and Plumeria's episode. This is where we get to I think I said that right. I think I said Plumeria right. Let's hope I did. This is where we get to introduce two new characters. For the next like 4 episodes, it's pretty hefty on world building. So some of the things that I am talking about could be a potential reach because again, I love deep diving into the characters and really getting into their brains and working with what I have. And while She-Ra is doing the world building, there's not a lot of character depth that goes into this. So again, this is all my takes, all the things that I think are happening within She-Ra, so I might not be 100% right. But yeah, let's get on into this podcast, shall we? Also, little reminder on YouTube, I'm looking over here to the right because this is where my computer is and my script is. Following along with the script because if I don't, I'll yap about who knows what for 2 hours. So I have to keep myself in check. And if you're watching on Spotify, I'm actually perfect and nothing I do is ever wrong. So I'm actually being a fantastic YouTuber and you're missing out. Anyways, so let's do a little overview, recap of episode 2, what we talked about the last. Adora makes a life changing decision to leave the Horde, which this choice is a step towards a new future. It leaves her grappling with guilt and uncertainty about where she truly belongs. Adora's transformation into She-Ra introduces a new layer of responsibility, but it also amplifies her internal conflict as she struggles to balance her past and the expectations tied to her new role. So, we're going to really dive into her identity crisis because she has one and she's going through it. Especially in this episode 3 with Razz. We see it in little parts, especially at the beginning. I'm excited to really jump into it. Episode 3 overview. This episode delves deep into Adora's identity crisis. She begins to confront the weight of She-Ra's legacy and what it means for her personality. At the same time, she's navigating with her complicated feelings about leaving the Horde. Leaving a whore. I lost my place. No. Um. Oh, sorry. A place that, while toxic, was the only home she's ever known. And I mean, I know that if I left the only home I ever knew, which I did, even though there's things, you still miss it. You still miss it. Anyways, um, her budding alliance with Glimmer and Bow provides support, but it's also really challenging for her as she learns to trust others and let go of her old worldview. That's a big thing that's going to be her struggle for season 1 is letting go of the Horde's view, and internally. We can really get into it and see how it affects her as a human because the show doesn't really show that much because again it's a kid show. Anyways, Adora's journey in this episode highlight her first steps towards building a new relationship and figuring out who she is outside the Horde's control. Episode 4 overview. Overview. Episode 4 continues to explore Adora's struggle with her new roles, but shifts the focus to the growing tension with the Horde. As Adora learns more about the rebellion in Etheria, she begins to see the impact the Horde has on the world, something she was sheltered from as a soldier. And I put the word shelter, but really what the Horde is doing is they're hiding this from their soldiers. They don't want the soldiers who are young to realize that they might not be always doing the best thing, because if there's doubt, then doubt leads to a rebellion, and they can't have that within their own ranks. This adds to her guilt, making it even harder for her to reconcile her past actions with the hero she is now expected to become. At the same time, the dynamic between Adora, Glimmer, and Bow begins to strengthen, though their differing perspectives often lead to conflict. This episode sets the stage for Adora's ongoing internal struggle while also showing her determination to move forward despite the weight of her fears and doubts. I'm really proud of myself for that. I know that was a yappy thing, but like I feel really proud of myself. So let's just I'm just gonna get into Adora's identity crisis because Adora is my Kenny. I love her so much, and she's the main character of the show. So sue me. Adora's identity crisis. Adora is torn between her past as a Horde soldier and her new role as She-Ra. She's created this internal conflict that weighs heavily on her. So how I see this is when we open up episode 3 and you're just watching it, within the first 5 minutes, Adora is being told that she needs to hide herself. She needs to cover her shirt that says the Horde, and she needs to, hide under a disguise so that the people of Bright Moon don't see her. And while this is a good idea, because honestly, I mean, they're in a war right now, and I know if I was sitting in the middle of a war and I saw the enemy soldier come up to my front door, I'd be like, "Hey, yo, are we under attack?" It's rightfully so. But for Adora, during this very confusing time, I sound like I just sounded like I'm sorry for your loss during this very hard time. Anyways, for Adora during this time, she's taking it personal, and she's taking it as they won't accept Adora, and she's now got this new identity. So Adora, like we talked in episode 1, has a really big problem of tying her worth to her performance. So what is she going to do, and what would anybody do if they were going through the same thing? They would say, okay, you don't want Adora, I can be She-Ra. I can do that. No, she can't, not right now. um she struggles to reconcile the person she once was with who she's expected to be now. I said that in the overview. She's right now, Adora is struggling with the guilt of what she's done, and what she's not necessarily done, but what she's participated in, um idly or cognitively. She has basically been a part of the Horde's complete destruction of Bright Moon and all of the surrounding kingdoms. She, as a soldier who loved the Horde, not necessarily loved the Horde, but respected the Horde, followed the orders, her whole life was around the rules and becoming a force captain, she took part in this destruction. So this guilt is really heavy on her during this time. Um, she protecting herself is another thing, and gain the trust of the rebellion. She hides her Horde upbringing because it terrifies her. Her past will lead to the rejection of mistrust and misjudgment. So in an order to protect her, basically kind of reworded in a way that I didn't write that stupidly, in a way to protect herself, she is putting up this shield of She-Ra, and I'm going to talk about that in episode 4, but she's using She-Ra as a shield right now. Um, Adora often feels like an imposter, believing she isn't truly worthy of what? Oh my god, sorry. I'm dyslexic, so I have my my script is kind of far away today because I don't want it to pop up on the camera, but I went from that first line to like the bottom, and I genuinely didn't know where I was at for a second. Adora often feels like an imposter, believing she isn't truly of She-Ra's immense power or the responsibility that comes with it. And getting into that, did I include this when I redid this? Because I filmed this before and I did not. Okay, so I didn't. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to yap. Um, I have a sneaking suspicion, and this is my little take on Adora, that she has or potentially could have imposter syndrome. If you don't know what imposter syndrome is, it's a psychological thing that people deal with. It's basically when you feel like no matter what you do, you will never be worthy of the things that you have, even if evidence proves that you have been. So, for example, in Shira's, a Shira example, it's like being handed the keys to the kingdom, but constantly fearing that someone's going to come and take them from you because you're not doing enough. But you were given them in the first place, so it means that you were trusted enough to have those keys. Real world example would be like if your parents were to give you a car when you turned 16 because they feel as if you were responsible and they feel like you could, you're going to be able to take care of this car, you're not going to wreck it, and you're given the car and you're given the keys and you're given, the freedom to go out into the world, but the entire time you're so scared and you don't want to go drive the car because you feel like at any point your parents are going to come take those keys from you because you feel like you didn't do enough. And I feel like that kind of fits Adora's character. I'm not trying to mischaracterize her at all. That's just my hot take, and I can be completely wrong. Please comment down below what you believe your hot take is. And if you're on Spotify, your voice is silenced and you do not have a choice but to believe everything I'm telling you right now. This internal struggle affects her relationships with Glimmer and Bow, who primarily see her as Shira. This is a really big thing and something that kind of frustrates me, especially when I do my rewatches. Within these first episodes, and it's not, I don't blame them because they don't know her, right? These three have been through so much in less than like 24 hours. So I'm not blaming them for seeing Shira as an asset to the war that they're losing. Not at all. But Adora is a human. And as an Adora Kenny, I really do, love her and I relate to her. So to see these two, characters constantly use her for her Shira abilities and kind of neglect the fact that she's Adora and she's a human and she has feelings and you know yeah. For example, in this episode, Glimmer quite literally says to Adora, "My mom will not like I don't I could be getting the exact quote wrong, but it's along this line like my mom's not going to like a Horde soldier, but she'll love Shira." And although that is correct, and although there's nothing wrong with that statement to a mentally sound person, to Adora, she's taking this as nobody's going to want me. I can only be Shira. And that is only fueling this identity crisis this girl's going through right now. They see her as the savior of Etheria. Adora feels like they don't fully see or understand her as a person. Now, I don't necessarily that if you're following along with the episodes while I'm doing the podcast right now, that's not true because Adora doesn't even know her own thoughts, right? She's been manipulated to a point where she really can't even think for herself. Thanks, Shadow Weaver. How many times can I talk about how much I hate Shadow Weaver in this podcast? I hate her. I hate that woman. Who do you think you are? Abusing and manipulating children? How there's a few there's I've got a list of people I just genuinely do not like and think that they deserve the worst in the world. And Shadow Weaver, you're on that list. You've made it on my list. And it's not very long. It's not very long, but you're on it. You're on thin ice, pal. But we do see this in season 4. It's a really big episode, and it's a really big turning point for Adora's character arc when she starts to feel like Adora, that Glimmer and Bow, what? When Adora starts to feel like Glimmer and Bow only see her potential and only see her worth as Shira. It's a really big character arc for her, and I know it's not the best because it's overthinking and that's not positive, but the fact that she herself thought you guys don't need me as Adora, you only need me as Shira. The fact that she even had that thought is it's positive because it's allowing her to grow as a human, if that makes sense. Because right now she's at a point where she can't even think this. She doesn't even see the process. So she's, again, being almost manipulated even by the people in Bright Moon right now. And I know that that could be a hot take and that could be controversial. And I'm not saying these people are doing her wrong, but the way that they word things, and because she is so easily manipulated, when they tell her, hey, you won't be welcomed as a Horde soldier, but you will be welcomed as Shira, she turns it, because this is mostly Adora's fault, she turns it as, I will only be welcomed as Shira, so I'm only going to be Shira. But it happened because they said it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like 5% the Bright Moon people's fault, but 95% Adora's fault. Not actually, no, Shadow Weaver's fault. Shadow Weaver, again, hate. hate, loathe. What does the Grinch say? Loathe it. This entire thing deepens her feelings of isolation. She is feeling very isolated right now, especially in a new place. I mean, could you imagine being thrown from one life to a whole other where people already have relationships established, they already have friendships, bonds created with everybody, and you are introduced as almost an enemy, but your alter ego is the savior, and you've got these, like, it's a complete opposite wheel, right? It's like Adora is an enemy, and she is a Horde soldier, ex Horde soldier. So we don't trust her. We don't want her here. We're kind of unwelcoming to her. But Shira is this legacy. She's supposed to come and save us from the Horde. So we kind of have to put up with Adora, but we really want Shira, right? That's how Adora feels. Not saying that's how the Bright Mean people feel, because I know that I have to be careful, because I do not want anybody to think that I said that I don't like the Bright Mean people. I love them. Don't do it. Am I supposed to cover the label of my Red Bull? Not sponsored. Fear of rejection and shame. Wow, we're just going to be getting really depressing in this podcast. Adora's fear of rejection stems from her past in the Horde. She worries that if the rebellion knew the full truth, they would view her as a threat or even an enemy. And this is talking about her hiding her identity. She carries a heavy burden of guilt from the harm the Horde has caused, even though she is left and she's no longer a part of the Horde. Adora internalizes that the responsibility. She internalizes that responsibility, believing she has to atone for the Horde's inactions. That's a big thing for Adora. She is the type of person to believe that if her friends fail, she's the one who has to make up for their friends. And that's not right. And it can be really annoying to have a friend like that who feels like they need to right your wrongs. But Adora, she does, because she's got this. Again, going back to episode 1, when we talked about her worth is tied to her performance, and she's been the leader of their squad in the Horde their entire. I'm talking about the Horde now with Catra, Lonnie, Rogelio, and Kyle. Adora has been the leader, has been that person that Shadow Weaver has put in charge of those people and her friends. So she feels responsible for anybody she's leading, right? And if they don't perform well, or if they do something wrong, she's never going to be mad at them. She's going to take that as a personal thing and say, I didn't do right. I failed. I'm not a good person. And that's not, poor Adora, because Shadow Weaver has done this to her. This isn't, some people have this and they do it like in real world, switching back to real world out of She-Ra. Some people do this, and it's not because they've had it. This wasn't influenced and this wasn't pushed on them. They just, kind of feel like they need to be responsible for everybody. Adora, on the other hand, has been manipulated, pushed, and molded into this force captain to be responsible and to feel the guilt of shame, and what to feel the guilt of failure, and the shame of that follows along with that. Um, the shame, her shame manifests in her constant need to prove herself. She pushes herself to be the perfect She-Ra, often at the expense of her own well-being. We see this in season 5. But because she doesn't believe she's enough just as Adora. And God, I love this girl so much, and it's so sad that you can just see it. You see it on her face, you see it in her attitude. She really doesn't feel enough as Adora, and so she overcompensates with She-Ra. Even her diving into battles, and we see it all the time in the show, her just literally, for the honor of Grayskull, then just running off into the battle. And it's like, whoa, what are you? Hello, we haven't even taken a breath. Like, we just got here. They're putting on their shoes in the locker room, and you're running to the locker room with a sword. Girl, you need to calm down just a bit, right? But she feels like Adora isn't enough, and Adora will never be enough. So if she can overcompensate with She-Ra, if she can do above and beyond, if she can completely wear herself out and do everything she possibly can as She-Ra, it'll make her feel more worthy as Adora. Ugh. This fear and shame make it difficult for her to accept herself or be vulnerable with others, creating a barrier in her relationship. It's a significant obstacle in her journey towards self acceptance and learning that she can be loved for who she is, not just what she can do. Okay.
hot take here.
Again, me running with the little interactions we're given and the little character arcs that we're given in these world building episodes. But and I'll talk about it in the next podcast. How many times can I say we'll talk about it this time? Adora. Oh goodness. Okay. So in episode 5 in the Seagate, little spoiler for the next podcast, we get a moment between Catra and Adora, and I'll go full into this in the next podcast. But Adora is so cold to Catra, so unbelievably. If you really watch it, I hadn't watched the Seagate episode in probably a month or two. Like it'd been a long time, and I was sitting there and I was like, wait a second. Like I'm doing a hyper analysis over this. I'm getting ready for the podcast, and I'm watching these two interact. Catra has done no wrong. Catra has not hurt Adora. Catra has not done like marked Adora. She has not fought with Adora. Even at that point when Catra sees her for the first time, Catra just shows up and she's just like like the tiara is getting stupider. Like, are you done? Can you come back now? Like, the kids miss you. Please come home. I can't do this alone. Like, Catra wasn't built to be a single mom. So she's not doing anything wrong. Adora is instantly like, walls up. I'm being rude to you. Ugh, what do you want, Catra? All the and I'm like, Adora, like this is new. I didn't realize this with Adora. And then, seeing this, the fear of vulnerability and the fear of Catra. Catra is this wound for Adora. She is this healing wound that is never going to be whole without Catra around. So Adora feels like in these earlier seasons, she has to be cold to Catra. So as much as I love Adora and I'm a Kenny, I think Adora might have started this uneasy tension between Catra and Adora. I don't think she started the enemies thing because Catra kind of went crazy for a little bit. Love her. I'm a Catra defender. Hey Spotify, I have a shrine of Catra behind me right now. I'm pointing to it. Like I love Catra, but I think Adora might have started it a little bit, especially in the Seagate. Sorry, I went on a tangent there. Let's just continue on with Adora's relationship with Catra, shall we? Catra is a really painful reminder. Hold on. I just burped so unbelievably loud. I'm about to do it again. It's fine. I'm gonna take a drink. We're gonna take a second to think about that. Not sponsored. Anyways, Catra as a painful reminder to Adora. For Adora, Catra represents both her past and the deep emotional conflict she carries. A wound. Leaving Catra behind when she chooses to join the rebellion is one of Adora's most painful decisions. This is tell me I'm wrong. Please attempt to tell me that one of Adora's most painful things she's ever had to done one of the most painful things she's ever had to done was to leave Catra. Tell me I'm wrong. Anyways. She sees Catra's face in almost every reflective moment as the guilt of abandoning her former friend and potentially something more gnaws at her. And I kind of ran with it there. I'm a Catra-Adora shipper. I kind of ran with little to no information or proof of that. But I think that Adora, she's constantly trying to protect herself from the decision she's made. When you do something that's not necessarily wrong, but you feel guilty about it. And so instead of addressing the fact, because you didn't do anything wrong, you don't have to apologize for it. So subconsciously, I didn't do anything wrong to you, but so that means I don't have to apologize, but it's painful and I don't want to think about it. I know I do. Maybe that's a trauma response. I don't know. Hey, am I standing alone right now? Where's the crowd? Why are you leaving? Come back. Okay. That's fine. I know that I do it. I know that I'm huge on that. If I feel like I didn't do anything wrong to you, but I feel really guilty, so instead of addressing how guilty I feel, I'm going to shield myself and probably not talk to you for a week. Red flag, but I do it. This podcast is me reflecting on how much of a anyways. The weight of that guilt. The guilt of leaving Catra behind is overwhelming for Adora. She feels responsible for the pain Catra must have gone through, knowing that her decision to abandon the Horde and join the rebellion must have felt like a betrayal. And the reason I say this is because later on, and in season 1, or yeah, in Promise, that's the episode. Catra talks about Adora leaving. And I can't remember exactly what she says, but it's something along the lines of like you feel like you're better than everybody else or something like that. And Adora's like, "No, that's not true." And I think Adora's thought about Adora's an overthinker. Tell me I'm wrong. Adora overthinks everything. So you can't tell me during her time away from the Horde, especially in these early stages, these first few days of her being gone, and she's spent every waking moment with Catra. They slept in the same bed. They trained in the same training rooms. They ate together. They're best friends. They know everything about each other. That Adora didn't sit there night and day going, I am so guilty about leaving her. I miss her. I'm sorry. I wish I could say I'm sorry. I mean, actually, I'm right. I'm so right. Okay, pause. We're going on a different tangent here. Did you guys know that there is a letter? There's a letter that Adora wrote to Catra. Adora's letter to Catra, Shira. And I'm gonna read it here. But this happens in season 1, and it's canon. It's canon. Okay. Uh, where is it at? It's in a book somewhere. Um, no, that's not it. It's this one, but this is blurry. Okay. Ready? This is in season 1, so everything I just said, I'm correct. Dear Catra, you're my enemy now. I need to hold my computer. Hold on. Dear Catra, you're my enemy now, and you always will be. I know that now. All this time I had hope that you would see the light. Hope that you would realize that Etheria is a beautiful place that needs to be saved and not destroyed. I have no more hope now, and that makes me sad. So sad, because I miss you, Catra, and I will always miss you. I miss your smile. I miss the gleam in your eyes when you would beat me in a race during training. I miss laughing with you when we would play a prank on one of the other cadets in the barracks. I even miss you snoring in the bunk above me. Those are things I remember when I think about you. I'm going to try and remember the good things about you instead of the bad ones because those break my heart. I'm sorry things ended up like this. I really am, but even if we could go back in time, I wouldn't do things any other way. Love, Adora. I will never send this, but it feels good to write it down. This is canon. It's in a Shira book, and it's confirmed by the writers of Shira. So one of the main things Adora literally says, "When I think about you," so she thinks about Catra. She's constantly thinking about Catra. That's I'm stretching that, but anyways, um, and I miss your smile. I miss your smile. I miss the gleam in your eyes when you would beat me in a race during training. I miss laughing with you. She she loves Catra. This girl's hooked. She writes a letter to Catra that she'll never send. I need a fanfic right now of Catra finding this letter. I need a hot take. I need a short take. A one shot. However you say it, whatever. But Adora misses Catra. She thinks about her. I'm not wrong. Stop telling me I'm wrong. I'm in a room alone. Nobody's telling me I'm wrong. The voices, that voice, release me. Anyway. Oh. Um. This guilt becomes internalized shame, causing Adora to distance herself from her own emotions, especially when it comes to confronting what she left behind. So, and the reason I say that, the reason I say distancing herself, this ties into that episode 5 when Adora is so cold with Catra. I believe that the reason Adora is doing that is to distance herself from the fact that she misses Catra. Catra is a wound, like I said, and Adora misses her. She wants her back, right? But she can't let herself think that. Okay, so continuing on. Sorry, I'm looking at my camera. I didn't know what I thought something was happening. Um, it Also, I'm having trouble right now because of the heat in my house. It could potentially overheat, which on Spotify you will get to hear me struggling to get it to not overheat, but I'm going to try and edit that out if it happens. So I'm just going to try and hope and pray that it doesn't, cross my fingers. Um Burying her feelings to protect herself. Let's, continue to dive into the fact that Adora loves Catra. Adora's emotional conflict is a double-edged sword. See what I did there? See what I did there? Side note, I talked to this on live, but hey, you guys on YouTube and the podcast, if you have ever seen or you have the ability to draw and you're a really good drawer, I would love, 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 love to see a fan art of Adora and Catra in Star Wars. Potentially, hear me out with this. Adora as Ben Solo and Catra as Dark Rey. You know how, Kylo Ren and Rey and do an AU swap with them. I would love to see that, and I would pay good money to see that. So if you have that ability, let's whip something up real quick and send it over. Anyways, while she feels guilty for leaving Catcher, she suppresses these feelings as a defensive mechanism. By burying the emotions, Adora tries to protect herself from the pain of facing what she's lost. She tells herself that she's made the right choice by joining the rebellion, but deep down, there's a constant battle over whether she can truly make things right with Catra. Hence the note. Hence the note. Um, Adora's emotions and her feelings and I mean, I personally take her as an overthinker. I mean, she literally was thinking so much about Catra that she had to write down her thoughts. So let's talk about the complexity of her emotions. Adora's emotions towards Catra are not just about guilt. There's a profound sense of longing for a connection she can't have and no longer has. I also feel like this is really true. And this is my own little headcanon. I feel like Adora got into Bright Moon, and even, when she met Blow and Glimmer, Bow and Glimmer have known each other forever, right? They've been friends for a really long time, and they have this bond with each other that Adora won't really ever get with them, but she has that bond. She knows what that bond, and the reason she knows is because she knows what that bond feels like because she had it with Catra. Okay, so she sees Bow and Glimmer, and she's like, "You guys have a bond like me and Catra had, and I won't ever be able to get in there with you. Just like Lonnie couldn't get in with Catra and Adora, just like Kyle couldn't get in with Catra and Adora, and just like Rogelio couldn't get in with Catra and Adora." She knows, looking at them, I will be friends with you and you can consider me as close as you want, but you guys want to make out with each other, and there's literally no way I can even attempt to be friends with you guys the way that you're friends with each other, because one, I'm not, romantically attracted to you guys, but I know the feeling because I am romantically attracted to my best friend in the Horde, who we literally would sleep in the same bed together. So, you guys do you, and I'm just going to sit here and write up a note to my ex girlfriend, and I'm going to talk to her about how much I miss her. The question of whether she still loves Catra or whether the love is something more complex, twisted by their history, lingers in Adora's heart. This internal conflict makes her journey towards self acceptance even harder as her relationship with Catra continues to pull her in different emotional directions. Throughout the series, she so the more Adora is in Bright Moon. Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay, so you guys, one of you in the comments said this, and oh my god, you are so right, and I love you, and I wish I knew your username so I could shout you out right now. You said in a YouTube comment, and I might be getting it wrong. I'm just gonna try and read the what I remember. You were talking about how Catra and Adora had to become enemies to be able to be lovers. Like they had to go through this and be apart from each other. I couldn't agree more, especially with what I just said. Okay, as Adora gets healthy, right, and she kind of is in healthy company and positive company, and she's no longer being manipulated and by Shadow Weaver, her, from the beginning, when like season, episode 5, Adora is very cold to Catra, but over the time, she's not, up until season 3, she's not cold to Catra. She's constantly like, she's fighting her, but there's this sense of like, I'm not like, you know almost playful banter, flirty, like I'm not actually going to try and hurt you. Okay. I fully believe that they did have to be apart. Adora had to get away from the Horde. She had to, because her mind is so tangled by Shadow Weaver's manipulation, she had to get completely away by people who would never do that to her so that she could start to untangle herself. Catra, on the other hand, same thing. She needed to get away from that, but she also had to reflect on herself and realize that nobody's going to hurt her like Shadow Weaver did anymore. But necessarily, Adora is not going to hurt Catra like Shadow Weaver did. And that's a big thing because Catra constantly thinks, I mean, I don't necessarily think that she thinks Adora and Shadow Weaver are the same person, but I think that in her brain, she's only ever been hurt by Shadow Weaver, and then Adora hurts her. So in her mindset, as a person who's been abused since she was a child, she sees them on the same level. Are they? No. But does Catra potentially see them on the same level because she was hurt by Shadow Weaver? You know that you know the sound on TikTok. You're like Papa. You know. You know what I'm saying? um so let's what are you doing here? You're not in the right part of my script. There's a part of this that I didn't move. Okay. So we talked about Catcher and we dove into it. And also, may I add, in Razz episode 3, the episode we're talking about right now, Catcher doesn't have a scene. Doesn't have a scene, and I probably just spent, how much time did I spend? 10 minutes talking about Catra and Adora, and there's literally not a scene of Catradora in episode 3, season 1 of She-Ra 2018. I need to be studied. Continuing on. So the weight of the She-Ra legacy. So this is something that is talked about in episode 3 a lot, and episode 4, and it's, all of these beginning episodes. Adora's transformation into She-Ra has shaken her sense of control. Need I say anything more? Adora, we talked about it in episode, 1 of my podcast, the ALLYDORA effect. Adora. Sorry, I just froze. I'm buffered. Adora feels like she has to be in control, right? Because let me play this out, okay, in parts. Adora's self-worth is tied to her performance. How can she make sure that she performs well so that she feels good, so that she feels like she has a sense of purpose in the world, is to be in control of every situation. She's a control freak. We see it in, I think, season 2, when they have that whole episode where they see, like, they're pinning Catra as like that, what I'm talking about, the animated. I'll put a picture on YouTube. This is what I'm talking about. If you're watching on Spotify, I don't know how to help you guys. Also, side note here, for you on Spotify, just know that episode 1, I most definitely, actually, there's no doubt in my mind because I am perfect, I did put the Horde's color palette. I did do that. And for you on YouTube, I know I didn't do that and I'm sorry. So I'm going to do it right now. Horde color palette, Bright Moon's color palette. This is the color palette that we see in the poster of the show. This is what we're used to. This is evil. We don't like this. Sorry. Moving back onto my notes. Let's get back on track. Her life with the Horde was structured, but She-Ra introduces uncertainty, chaos. She doesn't know how to balance her duties as She-Ra and her need for a personal connection. This dual identity creates a tension with her relationship with Glimmer and Bow. I titled that The Weight of the She-Ra Legacy. I think I, did that wrong, but this is where we're going to go with the podcast. And we'll get into the She-Ra Legacy later, but just know that Adora has to live up to a legacy. And, at first, she's not told about a legacy. She's not, hold on. My camera's dying. We're back to it. My camera died, so I had to, get up and go fix that really quick. Jumping back into this. I was talking about that She-Ra legacy and how, she's not, right at the moment, she's not being, at the moment, she hasn't heard about the She-Ra legacy. She's just knows that this person is a powerful thing, and she doesn't feel like, she feels like the sword didn't choose right. But then she gets told that apparently there's this shadow she has to live up to, this legacy, especially in episode 4 when the Plumerians start talking about, the She-Ra is here to save us, and Adora's like, the what? You know me? I just got here. What do you mean you know me? And this just, I mean, honestly, just starts a bigger, we were at a small snowball, and then the fact that people know about She-Ra and they're expecting greatness from She-Ra just really made a bigger snowball, and she's rolling down a hill, and she just can't stop herself. So, and then we're gonna bounce back to Glimmer and Bow now. Hope you're following along. I really hope you enjoy me talking about 20 different topics and not having a structure, even though I quite literally have a script sitting right in front of me. So, what are Glimmer and Bow's impact on Adora, especially in episode 3, season 1? Glimmer's expectation. Now, hold on. It's going to sound like I don't like Glimmer. I like Glimmer. I like Glimmer. I love Glimmer. But in this episode, I'm talking from an Adora point of view, okay? It does not mean I don't like Glimmer at all. I love her. I love her, okay? You guys on Spotify, please understand. I love Glimmer. You guys on YouTube, please understand. I love Glimmer. Glimmer's expectations. Glimmer sees She-Ra as the solution to the rebellion's problems. She-Ra is an asset. She-Ra is a title, is a complete wave change, right? It's what? Huh? Is a complete tidal wave in the rebellion's efforts against the hordes in the war. Having She-Ra on their side is crazy. This is the best thing that happened to them in the past 15 years of them fighting this war. I think it's 15. I'm not sure. 14 maybe? I don't know. She encourages Adora to embrace her role, but this makes Adora feel like her worth is tied only to her abilities as She-Ra, not her personal identity. Glimmer has a big role in kind of introducing this self-doubt and Adora. Please, I love her. But Glimmer and Bow do this. They do it a lot, where they're constantly confused between, is Adora, or is She-Ra the asset and the key to the war? And even sometimes Glimmer and Bow refer to it, while Adora is in her Adora form, refer to Adora as She-Ra. And while I'm watching the show multiple times, and I've seen it probably more times than I can count, over 30, Netflix has no clue whether to put it in my continue watching or already watched playlist. It doesn't know, neither do I. But I every time I watch it, I just sit there and I'm like, you poor baby. Like the first two people that that you meet and that you get close with out of the Horde, they see you and your alter ego as an asset, and that, I mean, even subconsciously, and I don't blame them for it, they would see She-Ra as, how do I say this? How do I word this? They would see her as statistically better than Adora, statistically. Feelings wise, they love Adora. Adora is their best friend. They love her. They would never, ever, ever choose She-Ra over Adora. But statistically wise, when you look at it, they need She-Ra. And they constantly make Adora feel like Adora isn't enough. And it comes to a point to Adora has to say this to them in season 4. Bow's optimism, he's a very optimistic person, and this is very good for Adora out of her toxic environment in the Horde, but this optimism does sometimes hurt her. This is, sometimes the closest people and your best friends can unintentionally hurt you, and you have to communicate with them. Adora does not know how to communicate, but sometimes the people you love the most can hurt you unintentionally without knowing, because they don't know your feelings and who you are as a person. That's not either party's fault, and that's not your fault. If you have experienced that, that's not your fault, and that's not their fault. If they love you and they truly love you, nobody's perfect, and they could potentially hurt you. That's okay. You just have to communicate. Adora doesn't know how to do that. So Bow's positivity about She-Ra unintentionally invalidates Adora's inner struggle. Bow, episode 4, and I'll talk about that, but in episode 4, Bow is very, very crazy about, he almost juices up She-Ra, creates lies about what She-Ra has done. And Adora's like, hey, buddy, I haven't done any of that actually. I don't really even know how to turn. We had to stop 2 blocks up so I could get out of the car and turn into She-Ra. It took me an hour and a half, and you're telling them that I have a dragon out back. I can sing the Game of Thrones theme song. Bum 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 bum. I mean, I can do that, but as far as carrying 20 men on my back, yeah, no, I haven't done that. But thanks for the lies that I now have to live up to. He pushes Adora to embrace her role, but doesn't really fully acknowledge her need for space to process her emotions. Again, not his fault. How is he supposed to know that? They're all very young. Okay? Easy. I love Bow. Bow's literally my 3rd favorite character in the show behind Adora and Catra. His excitement isolates Adora, making her feel like her doubts aren't allowed. I don't know if you have ever felt that. I know I have. When somebody is so excited about let's say I was about to, like, okay, I'll use this. If I was going to go audition for something, okay, and my best friend was so excited that I was going to go audition for it, that the fact that she was so excited for this thing, she almost kind of made me feel like I can't doubt myself. When you're like, oh, well, I just don't know if I'm going to get the role. No, you're going to get the role. You're going to get the role. You are going to get the role. And you're like, well, I kind of need to talk about this because I'm actually really overthinking right now. No, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. That's kind of what Bow does. It's not a negative thing. It's not a red flag. It just, to Adora, who's in this part of her life where she feels like, she's struggling between, is Adora enough, or is Adora should I hide Adora? This invalidates her feelings. The unintentional reinforcement of self-doubt, both Glimmer and Bow unintentionally kind of enforce Adora's imposter syndrome, what I talked about earlier. Their focus on She-Ra amplifies her belief that her value is in her powers, not who she is as Adora. This creates an emotional distance between them as they don't realize the depth of Adora's internal turmoil. And I love how the show has the ability, I talked about it in the last episode, but I love how this show, even as a kid's show, has the ability to foreshadow problems that will happen in the future. You know, how Catra says, that'll be a problem for future Adora and Catra. Well, right now, this is going to be a problem for future Adora, Glimmer, and Bow. This, idolization of She-Ra is going to be an issue later. Adora's struggle with worthiness. Adora's inner battle is rooted in her fear of being unworthy of She-Ra's role. The theme continues throughout the series, especially when Adora loses the Sword of Protection in season 5. That's a big thing for her. When she loses the sword in season 4, the finale, and doesn't have it in season 5, she feels like she has to overcompensate as Adora. And though she never refers to her breaking the sword as a mistake, she owns up to it, and she says, I made that choice and I'm living with the choices of that, and I'm living with the effects. She never refers to it as a mistake, but she is living with the aftermath of not being She-Ra, and she feels like she needs to lose sleep, not eat, and do everything she can to try and win the war. And this is just foreshadowing, again, I talk about it again, how season 1, we're dealing with this I don't know if I'm good enough to be She-Ra, to season 4 and season 5, I'm no longer She-Ra and I don't feel good enough as Adora anymore. And just that, kind of going back to that exact same feeling when she first got the sword. The sword represents her identity as She-Ra, and its destruction kind of really just, hyperdrives her imposter syndrome. Sorry, I kind of went on a little rant of future content. I really can't wait to get into season 4 and season 5, because those are so, even season 3, I just can't. I love doing this. This is so much fun, guys. I hope you guys, I'm kicking my feet and giggling. I really hope that you guys like the podcast, and I hope that you guys want me to continue to do this, because I have so much to talk about and I'm a yapper. Anyways. So let's talk about the trios dynamic just for a small millisecond of this. Hold on. Yeah, okay. I didn't. I will, though. Bow and Glimmer and Adora form an unlikely trio. But the tensions arise from their different perspectives. Bow provides emotional support while Glimmer focuses on She-Ra's role in the rebellion, ignoring Adora's personal journey. Listen, I just said that because of what we were talking about. Um, and but if you were to really look at it, and we really look at the trio, I'm gonna try. Hold on. This dynamic makes Adora feel torn between her duty and desire for acceptance. Really big here. Adora doesn't know whether she should fight for the desire to be accepted as Adora or whether she should focus on She-Ra. And again, going into Bow and Glimmer, they just kind of hyperdrive that. But I do want to talk about the trio's dynamic because I feel like we're getting introduced to them. I don't know if you've heard that song from the Oh Hellos, the Soldier, Poet, and King. The one that's like, there will come a soldier who carries on my sword. That one. Yeah. So Adora is the soldier. Bow is the poet, and Glimmer is the king. And this just go listen to the song. I'll put the song name right here and go listen to it, please. And you all guys on Spotify, you're already on Spotify. You're already there. Just, you know what? Search up right now, Soldier, Poet, King, and put it on your queues so that whenever the podcast ends, it'll just instantly play Soldier, Poet, and King. Okay, so I've yapped for about close to an hour about characters in a world building episode. Yeah, that's normal. Let's get into Madame Razz. Okay, the character, the title of the episode is called Razz, and I've just yapped for 50 minutes about Adora, Bow, and Glimmer and Catra. Did you expect anything different? If you expect anything different, you're in the wrong place. Anyways, Madame Razz and her impact on Adora. So, introduction to Madame Razz. Who is Razz? Who is this baddie? Who is this? Madame Razz is an exciting and whimsical character. She lives in the Whispering Woods surrounded by magic and mystery. Perfect, right? She has a very eccentric personality, known for speaking in riddles and blending past and present events. She appears scatterbrained but possesses profound wisdom. She has a really big connection to She-Ra's history, has a deep knowledge of She-Ra's history and Etheria's magical forces, and plays a key role in linking Adora to the legacy of She-Ra. Foreshadowing. Madame Raz has a relationship with Mara, the previous She-Ra. All these legacies that Adora will hear about, and all the legacies that she feels like she has to be better than, are all about Mara. And Raz has a connection and knew Mara. There's a very close connection to Mara, the previous She-Ra, and acts as a crucial link between Adora and her inherited role. Guiding Adora's journey, encourages Adora to question the meaning of being She-Ra, helps Adora navigate the burden of her past and the uncertainty of her future, roles in a larger conflict. Though seemingly out of place in the larger conflict, Madame Raz's role is essential. We'll see her essentialness in season 3 finale. Raz is very, very important, and we also see it in season 4. Madame Raz usually comes in when everything's falling apart and the world's about to end. That's when Madame Raz comes in and saves everything. So if you're a Raz hater, get out. Sorry. I'm so sorry, headphone users. I'm so sorry. Themes of choices and legacy. She serves as a guide and a mirror, reminding Adora of the importance of choices and self-acceptance and legacy. Wisdom and guidance. Raz appears eccentric and disconnected, but offers cryptic wisdom that helps Adora process her internal conflict. Little headcanon. Raz talks in riddles. And I feel like both of these She-Ras that we've seen so far live up to a very, very high expectation. They feel like they have to really, do everything they can and sacrifice themselves in the process. So Raz talking in riddles, I fear, makes both Adora and Mara have to sit back and go, what did you just say to me? And it makes them think. And it makes them pause and take a breath. And I think Raz knows this. And I think it's such a sweet gesture. In my head, this is why it's my headcanon, because I think she's going, if I talk to them in the most if I say the most uncontrollable and out of pocket things, and it makes them for just 1 second go, what? That 1 second, they weren't thinking about everything they needed to do today and tomorrow and all the people they need to save and everything they need to, achieve at. by doing that for 2 seconds, they just thought about the words I said. And I think it's such a sweet gesture. And I love that headcanon. And if you think I'm wrong, you're wrong. um, she helps Adora unpack her struggles. Adora feels trapped by guilt of her past with the Horde and the overwhelming expectations of being She-Ra. Raz's whimsical and carefree demeanor teaches Adora that she doesn't need to have all of the answers immediately. That's a that's a big thing. I don't know exactly what she says, but I know it's something along the lines of like, sorry, y'all, my camera overheated. That's two that we had in this time. Again, my camera's been doing this because my parents love to keep the heat at 100% in the house when it's cold. I don't understand it, so I opened up a window and I turned on a fan, so I'm hoping it doesn't happen again, but it could. So there's a potential, anyways. Diving back in. So we're talking about how Raz helps Andorra unpack her struggles. Um, Raz is a whimsical, Raz Raz is whimsical and carefree demeanor teaches Adora that she doesn't need to have all the answers immediately. This encounter helps Adora take a step forward, accepting both her past and her potential. And I kind of talk in, again, as somebody who's seen the show over 30 times, there could be a potential of me talking about the foreshadowing of it and the future of it and how Raz helps Adora in the future instead of how Raz helps Adora in this episode. So suck on it. Um, let's keep talking about foreshadowing, shall we? Raz's foreshadowing in Raz's foreshadowing in Mara's legacy. References Mara, the previous She-Ra, planting seeds for Adora's eventual exploration of her story. This parallel between Mara's struggle and Adora's challenges hint at the larger themes of a legacy and a choice that will shape Adora's journey. Little snippet of what's to happen in the future. But no, I think that it's really cool how they have. I mean, Raz is such a cool character, and I don't know if I've ever seen a character like Raz. Really, like I don't know if I could compare two characters, one like Raz, one like in another show, because Raz uses Mara and Adora's name interchangeably, and that doing in that action, she is showing to Adora and Mara that their stories and their ability to be She-Ra is not personal to them. They're part of something huge and bigger, and that they need to accept what they can do as She-Ra in their timeline that they have and be happy with it and not try to save everybody, because you won't. She-Ra is a bigger thing. There's going to be somebody else. That's the same thing. I mean, it's such a cool like little like headcanon and just head thought for the real world too. Like, guys, you don't have to be perfect, and you do not have to extend yourself to a point where you can't even breathe and think anymore, because you want to know what, it's kind of depressing, but hey, there's going to be another person, there's going to be something better. If you have to quit your job because you feel like it's not the right job for you, but you're worried if your work is going to survive, there's going to be somebody else. There are millions of people in this world, billions of people in this world. There will be something else, somebody better, and that's okay. Do what you can, be happy with what you can do, and move on. And I love that Raz kind of is able to portray that even in a kids show, because I feel like there are so many kids out there and just people who feel like they have to be perfect, and you don't. And you don't have to be perfect in the time that you have on this earth. You are who you are, and if you're not perfect, that's okay. It's not about it's in the end, it's not about all you did. It's about what you did and how much fun you had doing it. Get me on a TED Talk stage right now. Guiding Adora towards self acceptance, Raz introduces the idea that being She-Ra isn't about perfection or power, but about finding her own path. This lesson allows Adora to take a small but meaningful step towards becoming the person she wants to be, rather than just fulfilling others' expectation. I didn't take a breath during that entire thing that I just said. So overall, Raz's character is fundamentally one of the best characters in the show. Prove me wrong. I love Razz. She's such a good character. She's so funny, and she's a comfort character for me. Every time I see her on the screen, I feel like I can relax. I feel like I'm safe. So yeah, I love her. So towards the end of episode 3, a lot of tensions rise, and it sets the stage for episode 4. Adora's decision to introduce herself as She-Ra. Man, you really set yourself up for failure on this one. And I was talking about this on my live. Hey, you guys, if you were on the live and you heard me talking about this. At the end of the episode, Adora makes a pivotal choice to introduce herself as She-Ra rather than Adora. And this is not a good choice. This marks a significant moment in her journey of self acceptance and reflects the tension between her old self and the person she's becoming. Her decision to present herself as She-Ra signifies the beginning of her embrace of this new identity, even though she's still struggling with the fear of being rejected for her past. So, on a positive outlook, she's accepting She-Ra. And she's telling everybody that she's accepting this role and she will do it. And she will be. Sorry, everybody. Technical difficulties. My camera keeps overheating because, again, my parents love to turn it up to 80 degrees in the house whenever it's cold outside. Why is it 80 degrees in here? I don't know. Anyways, we were talking about, where was I? Okay. Yeah, no, we were talking about how this is Adora is accepting the fact that she is She-Ra, but in doing so, she is setting herself up for failure because when she walks in as She-Ra, everybody is, eyes open, jaws are on the floor. They're like, this is, guys, this is She-Ra. She-Ra's here. And then she turns into Adora and they go, oh, you just a girl. Oh, you ain't nothing special. If she would have went about this way, if Adora would have walked in as Adora and then, for the honor of Grey School, turned into She-Ra, they would have respected Adora more than they respected. Okay, well, this podcast is never going to be perfect, guys. I'm an imperfect person, keeping on track with what we're talking about. The fact that I was sitting here talking about how hot it is in my house and my father just comes in and was like, who touched the fully went, who touched the thermostat? The SpongeBob where Mr. Crab puts a lock on, that literally is my dad. He was like, who touched the thermostat? Literally, I'm sitting here, I'm like, no, I'm overheating. Like my camera itself is overheating too. I didn't touch the thermostat. Don't worry, we found the culprit. Back onto what we were talking about. Adora's choice to become She-Ra is one of the most, detrimental things to her. I truly believe, because she sets herself up for failure. And she establishes in everybody's mind that She-Ra is a Horde soldier instead of a Horde soldier could be She-Ra. And she could give herself Adora brownie points by walking in as Adora and turning into She-Ra. But instead, she walks in as She-Ra and turns into a Horde soldier, which everybody's like, oh, that's not good, Anyways, this moment highlights her desire to protect her true self, Adora, by allowing She-Ra to be the face as she shows the world. It underscores how much pressure Adora feels to live up to the expectations of others and her internal conflict over whether she deserves to carry the legacy of She-Ra. It's a powerful and symbolic decision that sets the stage for the future episodes, where Adora will continue to confront her identity and what it means to be truly herself. So really, this entire episode is about Adora trying to figure out what she is and what, if she's, She-Ra and Adora. And I mean, she will struggle with this for the rest of the show. But Razz truly does help her later on and gives her, kind of gives her like future notes. She's handing her all this information, and then Adora will revert back to these informations later on when she's at the mindset to do it. But right now she's not. But, episode 4 for you guys. So let's continue on with that was episode 3 for you guys. Sorry, my words don't work. Let's continue on to episode 4. Episode 4, analysis, the burden of expectations and the mask of She-Ra. That's a really, what we're using here. So starting off with the episode, this is when we get the iconic moment of, Glimmer, I think I killed the bed. We get that moment. That we get that moment, and it's a big moment. So Angela plays a really big part in this episode and why Adora does what she does in this episode. At the beginning of the episode, Queen Angela tells Adora that she cannot fail Glimmer, reinforcing the immense responsibility already weighing on her. Angela's words act as both a command and a guilt-bearing reminder, shaping Adora's mindset throughout the episode. For someone like Adora, who is new to the rebellion and eager to prove herself, these words carry a significant emotional weight. No matter what, if you were new to a sports team and the coach told you that the only way that you can stay on the team is if you play well. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter if you've had manipulation your entire life or if you were if you were raised in the most Peppa, or if you were raised in the most healthy environment. It doesn't matter. You're going to feel that pressure, and that's basically what Angela is telling Adora. I only considered you being in this rebellion because Glimmer trusts you and Glimmer vouched for you, but just know you better not fail her. That's so much pressure for her. How does this affect Adora? Angela's expectations tap into Adora's sense of duty and her fear of letting others down. Having grown up in the Horde where failure was met with punishment and disdain, Adora internalizes Angela's statement as an ultimatum rather than an encouragement. And Angela's words as the queen of Bright Moon and as the leader of the rebellion, right? They're not wrong. You at some point after losing your husband and going through all this pain, you have a right to tell the Horde soldier who's apparently supposed to save you, hey, if you betray us, like, let's not. Please don't. And she's not even threatening Adora. She's just saying, like, for a fact, you're a Horde soldier, right? You are an enemy. You're in enemy territory. And I know that you say that you've switched sides, but I've only let you here because Glimmer trusts you. So don't fail her. And she's not threatening her with anything. She's just putting it out there as almost like a warning. Hey, this pressure magnifies Adora's insecurities about her new role as She-Ra and her ability to lead. It becomes less about supporting Glimmer and more about living up to the impossible statement, which starts to chip away at her self-confidence. So, I don't really even think I need to get into that. Anyways, so in this episode, Adora uses She-Ra as a mask, especially in Plumeria, because she literally, again, goes into Plumeria as She-Ra, and Glimmer literally asks her, hey, are you going to be She-Ra the entire time we're here? And Adora's like, yeah, that's what I told your mom I'd do. Also, can Adora do this? And then shows off She-Ra's strength. She's quite literally saying, She-Ra's better than Adora, and I'm not afraid to use it. Throughout this episode, it becomes clear that Adora is using She-Ra's persona as a mask, a shield to hide her vulnerabilities and doubts. The transformation into She-Ra gives her a physical and symbolic sense of power, but it also distances herself from her own identity. Adora's struggle with identity. Adora is still figuring out who she is outside the Horde, outside the rebellion, and outside of She-Ra. The larger than life nature of She-Ra becomes a way for her to avoid confronting her fears and weaknesses. So right now we're learning that Adora has avoidant problems. The burden of being She-Ra becomes a synonymous with perfection. Adora begins to equate her worth with her ability to succeed as She-Ra. Where have we seen this before? Is this new for Adora? Absolutely not. Rather than herself, this this discernment creates a growing disconnect between her identity and her role. Some emotional impacts. Adora's insecurities on embodying She-Ra all cost her because she pushes herself beyond her limits physically and emotionally. This episode why, oh my god, side rant, why did we spell subtly or the word subtley? Why do we spell it with a b when that's not even how you pronounce it? I can't say the word, and I use it because I say it correctly in my brain. When I'm reading it right here, I'm saying it right, but when it comes out my mouth, I don't know how to say it, and I'm not going to. Anyways, this episode slowly and little bitty portions, right? Rations, shows her she uses She-Ra as a way to avoid asking for help or admitting she's unsure of herself. The mask of She-Ra gives her confidence, but it also isolates her. She hesitates to lean on her friends, fearing that admitting weakness as Adora could mean failure as She-Ra. And we learn throughout this entire process that Adora hates the feeling of weakness. And especially when people were like, did you never, I think it was Glimmer who's like, in one of the episodes, she's like, did you never have a sick day, or were you never sick? And she's like, well, we were taught to never show weakness because weakness is a way of like letting your enemies in and see where they can hit you. Like, girl, if you've got a 101 fever, nobody's going to try and, are you okay? You know what? Here's a BetterHelp gift card. I have a good therapist. Do you want to talk to her? Anyways. Also, while you're at it, give it to Catra because she's definitely going to need it in the future. Connections to the theme of the show. This episode emphasizes on one of the show's reoccurring themes, the pressure to be perfect versus the importance of self-acceptance. For Adora, She-Ra represents an ideal she feels obligated to live up to, but the journey of the series is about her learning to reconcile her true self with her role as She-Ra. The contrast between Adora's internal struggles and the external perception of She-Ra highlights how people often project confidence or strength while struggling internally. I'm very proud of myself when it comes to writing these scripts sometimes because I read it out loud and I'm like, dang girl, you did good. Like, ooh. Now, why can't you talk? Anyways. Additional layers. Parallel with Glimmer. Glimmer is also grappling with expectations, both from Angela and from herself. This episode subtly shows. I used that word again and it makes me so mad that I did that. Parallels Adora and Glimmer's struggles, showing how both young women are trying to prove themselves in shadows of strong maternal figures. What? Oh, Mara. I was talking about Mara. Sorry. I thought for a second I was talking about Shadow Weaver and I was about to literally cuss myself out. No. Adora sees Mara as this, or the legacy of She-Ra, right? And Glimmer, on the other hand, has this strong maternal figure. And you know what? I'm going to bite my tongue when I say this. Within this first season, before Adora realizes how toxic Shadow Weaver was, she is trying to, as any child does, live up to the expectations of the maternal figure in their life. Shadow Weaver is a horrible person, but Adora does it until she realizes in Shadows of Mystacor how manipulative and trauma she has from Shadow Weaver. Now, Glimmer, on the other hand, doing it in a way that's acceptable socially because Angela is a queen and she's also hot, but but that's her mother, right? And the Queen of Bright Moon. And that's socially acceptable. Adora, on the other hand, please don't ever say that out loud. And also, I don't even really believe myself when I say that. But psychologically, it's a possibility. Foreshadowing. Adora's reliance on She-Ra as a mask foreshadows her eventual confrontation with the idea that She-Ra is not just a role to play, but a part of who she is. It sets up future conflicts where she must learn to balance her personal identity with her responsibility as She-Ra. The sword part 2. Mara. That entire speech, you're not what, you're not what Mara's quote to Adora in the last episode of She-Ra. What is her quote? I really want to say it. What does she say to her? What is it? You're worth more than what you can give to other people. You deserve love too. Quite literally foreshadowing. I love it. Again, I physically love this show and the way that they're able to portray these early episodes. And if you're obsessed with it and you have an unhealthy addiction to it, like myself, you're able to go, oh my God, the way that Adora is struggling with this now and then gets called out in, 4 years with Mara is absolutely, I love it. It's my favorite thing ever. Episode 4 is also the first test Adora has as She-Ra. This is the first time she's getting to actually go out on Bright Moon's side, known on Bright Moon's side, and be She-Ra. Adora is thrust into a leadership role in this episode, not because she feels prepared, but because she feels she must. This marks a critical point in her arc. Adora's response to her fear and uncertainty is often to overcompensate by throwing herself into action. She-Ra becomes both a shield and a performance for her deep-seated insecurities. Adora is still learning what it means to be She-Ra. She doesn't feel like she has a choice but to keep moving forward. But it's not just about saving Etheria, it's about saving herself from self-doubt and plagues her. I love it. The symbolism of the sword. The sword symbolizes Adora's power, but it also represents her reliance on external validation. Ugh! Adora is such a words of affirmation girl. Please tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me that after season 5, Adora and Catra, when they have their relationship, tell me that Adora's love language is not words of affirmations. She literally she is a words of affirmation girl. She is a words of affirmation girl. Not physical contact, not gifts, not gift giving. It is words of affirmation for Adora. Oh my god. As She-Ra, she feels like she's only as strong as the sword she wields. When the sword's magic fails her, Adora's frustration bubbles over, revealing how deeply her sense of self is tied to the idea of power. Is She-Ra defined by the sword, or is she defined by the person wielding it? This episode challenges that very question and begins to chip away at Adora's reliance on external symbols of strength. So I do like how the show introduced this problem very early on to Adora. It's bad for her mental health, but it does create a warning for her to understand that without knowing what you're capable of and without training, there are certain things you're not going to be able to do. So when Adora has the challenge of healing Plumeria and healing the ground and saving them from the Horde's destruction, she can't do it because she doesn't know how, and that's okay. But I'm glad that it introduced it now instead of like in season 3 when the world's ending and Adora doesn't know how to do certain things with the sword. The weight of expectations on She-Ra. Adora transformation into She-Ra isn't just about a personal journey, but it's also one shaped by expectations of those around her. And this is a big one in this episode. This is the first time we get like a view of how every other kingdom in Etheria sees She-Ra. She-Ra shows up and these people are like, "Oh my god, it's She-Ra. Like we're saved. Here, have my child. Please eat the last rations we have. You are our human. You are literally like you are. That's it." And Adora's like, "Oh, wait, hold on. I'm nervous. I'm scared." Um and the world looks to her as a savior, placing the weight of Etheria's survival on her shoulders. This pressure isn't just external. Adora internalizes it, constantly trying to prove herself, even at the expense of her own well-being. And that's a huge thing because this girl values her worth to her physical performances. So when the world, the entire of Etheria, is now saying, "You are going to save us and you don't have a choice," now Adora is like, "Okay, so if I don't," right, okay, got it. So if I fail, I'm going to die. Like that's, long story short. So let's talk about Perfuma. Perfuma is the character that we get introduced to in episode 4, and Plumeria is the new land, the new kingdom we're introduced to. World building. These episodes are about world building. Perfuma's personality. Perfuma's pacifism and belief in harmony contrasts with Adora's actions-orientated mindset. She approaches problems with patience and kindness, which unintentionally highlights Adora's fear that her strength-focused methods may not be enough. This clashes, leaving Adora questioning her ability to lead effectively as She-Ra. Perfuma's expectation. Perfuma views She-Ra as a symbol of perfection and hope. She adds pressure on Adora to always succeed, while not intentionally. This idolization reinforces Adora's belief that she can't make mistakes or show vulnerability. It deepens her internal struggles with living up to others' expectations. Plumeria as a symbol. Plumeria's decay mirrors Adora's inner turmoil and feelings of inadequacy. The land's slow healing frustrates Adora as it cannot be solved through sheer strength and immediate action. This reinforces her self-doubt and fear of failing as She-Ra. It's pretty cool how one of the first problems Adora encounters is the fact that she needs to basically basically sing Kumbaya and sing around the fireplace and heal the land when she has been a Horde soldier her entire life and all she knows is brute force. And so she's sitting there like, I have a sword. You want me to heal you? I can unheal you. I can stab you, but I can't. You're asking too much. You're asking too many questions. Brittany Broski reference. Um Plumeria is a symbol of failure to Adora. The decaying state of Plumeria serves as a constant reminder of Adora's perceived inadequacies. Unlike other battles where She-Ra's strength and determination lead to clear victories, Plumeria's revival is slow, uncertain, and not entirely within Adora's control. This undermines her confidence and makes her question whether she's truly capable of being the hero everyone believes her to be. And also, it's a catalyst for growth. Despite the challenges, Perfuma and Plumeria push Adora to grow by forcing her to rethink her approach. She begins to learn that being She-Ra isn't just about strength and quick fixes, but also about patience and adaptability. This helps her find a balance between her role as Adora and She-Ra. I try to get through that as fast as I can. I love Perfuma, and I think I hit all the points there because my wife is the next topic, and I want to talk about my wife, and I know that I have like 20 minutes to do so and get through this episode. So we're working on a time frame here. Catra's role and mindset in episode 4. And although, so the last episode I talked for about 10 minutes about Catra and we weren't even shown Catra. In this episode, we were given what, 4 minutes? How long do you think I'm going to go? 10 times 0, 10 times 1. So, 40, maybe 50. I'm kidding. So in this episode, we get to see Catra as a force captain. We get to see her in action as a force captain. After episode 2, Catra has been promoted to force captain, so now we get to see her in action. And within the first like 3 minutes, she walks out and she's about to show off her badge and brag in front of Lonnie, Kyle, and Rogelio. And then all of a sudden, she's about to talk some crap on Shadow Weaver, rightfully so. I'm here for it, clapping along, snapping my fingers, and all of a sudden, Shadow Weaver shows up behind me, and then we have that moment of, she's right behind me, isn't she? And then Catra gets pulled into the locker room, and there is a picture of She-Ra up on a locker. And you know what Catra does? She takes that picture down. Do you want to know why she does that? Go, stop. Okay, edit that part out. So Catra is in a. So Catra gets pulled into the locker room and she pulls down that picture of She-Ra. Sorry, I had to edit a part out there, but she pulls down that picture of She-Ra. Do you want to know why Catra pulls down that picture of She-Ra? Because she's still protecting Adora. She still cares about Adora. Catra, so far, 4 episodes in, has not shown that she's a villain, has not done anything villain-wise, has not done anything harmful or red flaggish. She's literally done nothing wrong. She's a perfect human being, and you cannot tell me otherwise. Thank you. Hints to my shrine behind me. In the locker room scene, Catra tears down the paper showing her lingering care for Adora. Despite the growing rift, the small act highlights her internal conflict. She's angry at Adora for leaving, but still wants to shield her from Shadow Weaver's wrath. This moment reflects Catra's struggle between her resentment and her deeply buried loyalty. Catra's defense of Adora to Shadow Weaver. At the episode end, Catra tries to protect Adora by telling Shadow Weaver that her defection is just a phase. This defensive stem from a mix of denial and hope. Catra wants to believe Adora hasn't fully abandoned her and that she can bring her back. It's a way of maintaining control in a situation where she feels increasingly powerless. Oh, my baby. Catra's mindset. Catra's actions come from a place of vulnerability. She feels betrayed by Adora's departure, yet she can't fully let go of the bond that they shared. Her need to protect Adora, even while resenting her, shows the depth of her emotional conflict and her fear of being truly alone. I'm gonna let you sit on that one. Catra's character arc. This episode hints at the complexity of Catra's character arc. Her actions are driven by love, anger, and an overwhelming desire to prove herself. She feels rejected by Adora and Shadow Weaver, fueling her need to reclaim control and validate her worth. The mix of vulnerability and ambition sets the stage for an eventual descent into darker choices, while still holding on to the faint hope of reconciliation. So, like I said, Catra has not done anything wrong at this point. She's actually doing things right. She's still protecting Adora from Shadow Weaver. She still believes Adora will come back. And she thinks it's a phase. She's in denial. She wants Adora to come back. She misses her. And when it comes down to it, and that flight or fight moment happens with Shadow Weaver, Catra fights. She says, "It's just a phase. I'll get her back." But you're not. She never. She knew she's a Horde soldier. That can be treason. That can be, you can get in trouble for that. And if you were in an actual army and you knew that the enemy army had a weapon and you knew who had the weapon and you knew where to find it and how to dismantle it, and you didn't tell your officer or your hierarchy, that could be treason. And Catra is willing to do that for Adora. Even after Adora has left her, she's willing to still protect her, and she's willing to take on Shadow Weaver's literal wrath. Because in the locker scene, you know what Shadow Weaver is about to do? Shadow Weaver is about to attack Catra. But then Shadow Weaver loses her power and she kind of doubles over. And you know what Catra's instinct is? To go to Shadow Weaver, to help her. And then Shadow Weaver pushes her. How dare she? Let's talk about this abuser now. So Shadow Weaver breaks the rules by continuing trying to get Adora back after Hordak literally tells her, "Stop. You're obsessed. She left. We have bigger fish to fry. Let her go." And Shadow Weaver's like, "No." Do you want to know why? Not because that's her child. No, 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 no. Adora backdrives her break horde protocol. This highlights her obsessive need to maintain control over Adora, whom she views not as an individual, not as a human, not as a 17-year-old girl, but as her prized creation. Her actions reveal her desperation and willingness to defy orders, showcasing how far she will go to regain her perfect puppet. Viewing Adora as a puppet, Shadow Weaver focus on Adora stems from her belief that Adora is a tool to achieve her ambitions. And this only gets bigger and this only gets heightened when Adora is She-Ra, because now Adora is an even bigger person. She values Adora's obedience and potential, but disregards her autonomy and her emotional well-being. Yeah. Her obsession reveals her manipulation nature and inability to see those under her care as anything more than pawns. Abusiveness towards Catra in this episode. This episode also gives a clear look at Shadow Weaver's abusive treatment of Catra. Her sharp criticism, dismissiveness, and favoritism towards Adora leave Catra feeling worthless and unwanted. Shadow Weaver's condescendingness remarks a lack of trust in Catra and reinforces the deep-seated insecurities that shape Catra's behavior and drive her desire for validation. And then the dual manipulation of both. Shadow Weaver's treatment of Adora and Catra reveals a pattern of manipulative control. She uses her praise and favoritism to keep Adora loyal while undermining Catra's confidence to keep her submissive. Her dynamic with both characters showcase the toxic power she holds and how it fractures their relationship, setting the stage for their respective arcs. The reason I wanted to talk about Shadow Weaver and the reason I wanted to end this episode is because this is the first time we actually get to see Shadow Weaver's abusive tendencies towards the two pupils that she's raised. And huge thing here, when Shadow Weaver lifts up Adora and she she praises her and favoritism she wants to keep Adora loyal. And I've talked about this on the live, but Shadow Weaver uses a certain tone with Adora, and it's the same thing with a dog. I have a dog, and when I was training her to, come and sit and lay down and move, I used a clicker and I use a certain tone. So now when I talk to my dog and I want her to follow a command, I usually say, "Pippa, sit." And I say it like that. She literally just perked up when I did that. I say it just like that every single time, because if I were to say right now, Adora, Pippa, sit, she's laying back down. She doesn't care. It's all about tone. Shadow Weaver has trained Adora over the course of her life to listen to a certain tone. And do you know what Shadow Weaver uses every time she talks to Adora? That stupid tone. And she never uses it with Catra. It's only Adora. For example, Adora. Just her name in general. Adora in her mind has now associated that with praise, that validation, that constant yearning. Oh, you're talking to me? Oh, wait, attention pulled. Did I do something right? What do you want from me? How can I do better? Am I going to be told I did good? So Adora, when she does that, when she's praising Adora in front of Catra and tearing Catra down, she is keeping Adora loyal to her control. But in doing so, when she's tearing down Catra and raising up Adora, she's keeping Catra submissive. Two very different types of manipulations that Shadow Weaver uses on these two, but it works, and it also pits them against each other. And we'll talk about that in the episode of Promise, episode 11 of season 1. But overall, these episodes and, the next couple of episodes are big on world building. So if I'm not hitting all the points, I am sorry. I would love to know your opinions and how you see these episodes in the comments below, because I like talking about this show and I'm a big fan of it. So if you have any sort of different views on it, please, I would love to talk about it. I also want to, preference this one more time. I'm not a Glimmer or Bow hater. I love both of them. I love Angela, and Catra is my wife. So with all that being said, I thought I would give you guys some of my headcanons for Cachadora so far into the show, if I was to just go off of the 4 episodes that I've watched, while being a big shipper of those two. Despite the distance, both Catra and Adora silently long for the bond that they once had. Catra remembers the old days when they were inseparable, though she hides it behind anger. Adora, too, feels guilty and misses Catra, but pushes those feelings aside to focus on her new path. I think that that's a big one. Silent apologies. I think that they both, when they're alone, I think they both apologize to each other, and they're like out loud. I think that, like, when Adora's alone in her room at night, laying in bed and everything's dark, I think she's apologizing to Catra, and I think Catra's doing the exact same thing. Reckless hope, and I think that they both deep down fully believe and are in, full denial that they both left, and I think that they both believe that they'll come back and that it'll just go right back to the way they were. Now, I think that's for Catra. Adora, on the other hand, I think that she's got this like hope that Catra will eventually come to Bright Moon and they'll be able to have the relationship that they had in the Horde now in Bright Moon, and it's just like this undeniable hope of these two. And silent communication. I think that, okay, hear me out on this one. When they're in battle, okay, it is not shown in the show, this is a pure headcanon. When they're in battle and they're fighting against each other, I think that those two had certain ways of communications outside of verbal talking, within hand gestures, face gestures, body language. I think that they did it in certain ways. Like, I know for a fact, like, you guys might know Riley from TikTok, but I have a cousin named Riley, and there are some moments where I don't have to say a word to her. I can look at her and I instantly know exactly what she's saying to me. And I think Catra and Adora do that too. And I think that on the battlefield, when they see each other, they do that. Like, good or bad. I think that they're both like, are you serious? Or if Catra or Adora do something stupid, I think that they also both instantly look for each other in the battle. Like, you're not laughing at me. You didn't see me just fall off this cliff. Just little things that I find interesting about, Cachadora and my little headcanons towards the end of this episode. But, hey, I actually finished this in shorter time than the other one, hopefully, if I can get through my outro. But you know what? Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys for sticking around. If you stuck around this long, you guys are actually amazing. And I really hope you're liking the analysis so far and the podcast. And yeah, I love this show. I love you guys. Make sure to follow me on my other social medias, especially Blue Sky. I talked about this on TikTok. With the TikTok ban coming up, I'm going to be on Instagram, YouTube, Blue Sky, and Twitch probably. Maybe more, I don't know. But as of right now, those are the only 4 that I'm probably going to be active on. I have Eliminate, but I'm not going to put all my eggs in that basket because it's owned by ByteDance. So Blue Sky is where I'm going to be updating you guys for YouTube videos, live streams, things on TikTok, cosplays, things like that. That's just going to be the easiest way for me to communicate with you guys. And Instagram is going to be the same thing. Here on YouTube, you're probably only going to get videos here and there and YouTube shorts, but those can be hidden sometimes by the algorithm. So make sure to follow me on Blue Sky. That's going to be the easiest way for me to talk to you guys and tell you what's happening. Also, I'm a yapper, so that's my personal diary. I've already posted like 4 posts in the past 24 hours. One's a picture of somebody who drew a blonde girl, and it looks just like Adora from a fanfic that I'm writing. Also, one, I talked about how villain characters in cartoon shows always look extremely hot before their redemption arc. And I also talked about the TikTok ban and how sad I am that it's going. So make sure to follow me over there. I'll put them on the screen right now. But yeah, thank you guys for sticking around. You guys are amazing. Please make sure you eat and drink water. Know that you are worthy. Know that you are loved and you are very special to me. So thank you guys. And with that being said, you guys have a great day, great night. Also for you guys on Spotify, my I am allyssunn on everything with the Adora profile picture. I probably should just say that because I forgot that I am talking to people who might not be seeing me. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. You guys have a great day. Bye.